So we've just covered in a compressed way many of the themes which we're now going to explore more fully. It's clear that as humans we contain the potential to create on the one hand great value and beauty, and on the other total and utter destruction. So we may feel sometimes that we're being bombarded by negative forces from the outside and destructive influences from the inside. But on the other hand, most of us would say that at any one time we're probably somewhere between creation and destruction. So we could say that each moment in time is an act of creation that contains the potential for positive or negative, good or evil. But what exactly is a moment in time? What goes to creating a moment? Well, to explore that we need to understand the concept of the fusion of mind and matter. Now this is a Buddhist principle commonly known as the middle way. It originated about 3,500 years ago, and to discuss it we're joined by somebody who's written extensively on this and many other related topics, Edward Camphor-Dumas. Hi Eddie. So Eddie, I understand that the middle way was first expounded in the Lotus Sutra. Can you tell us a bit about that?
The Lotus Sutra is the ultimate teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha, who's also known as Siddhartha Gautama. He was a royal prince who lived in India about 3,000 years ago. But he gave up his royal status to find the answer to a fundamental human problem, which is why people suffer. So he, after leaving the palace, spent several years in this spiritual quest. And finally, under the Bodhi tree, famously, he had his moment of realization, his enlightenment. And many years later, in fact, he set this down in the form of the Lotus Sutra. But he didn't teach this immediately, because having come to this deep realization, he faced the problem of how to communicate it to people who didn't have the same kind of understanding as him. So he spent about 30 years teaching his disciples and followers various preparatory teachings to bring them to the stage where they would actually understand the Lotus Sutra. It's been described a bit like Einstein trying to teach relativity to kindergarten children. You have to raise them through different stages until they get to the point where they can understand what he really wants to say.